Hilsenrath, there's some talk. There was a meeting yesterday. They're still talking among the Republicans, the Freedom Caucus, Vice President Pence, Reince Priebus, about health care reform.
Right.
But should they at least move? Do you think that they really have to move on at this point?
I think the lesson that they learn on health care reform is they've got to take that slow. It's not going to happen as quickly as they expected. In the meantime, they've got to move towards a tax reform agenda, and they do. Once again, like the health care reform, the part of the Republican Party that's driving that agenda are House Republicans. They're the ones with a plan, and so the White House has to decide: are they going to go with the House plan, or are they going to come up with something new? There are a lot of problems with the House plan, and it doesn't look like they have the White House has its own plan. So that's another thing that's going to be slow walked by this administration.
How important is it, Caitlin, for the president to keep meeting with these business leaders, even if you have a slow-moving, actual pro-growth agenda down in Washington coming out of the White House? How critical is it for him to keep talking to these executives who are broadly optimistic?
I think that's exactly right. I think he needs to show that he's actually doing some work, even though they haven't been able to claim some legislative victories, and then in the background kind of be working out the kinks here and there. I think that he should leave the legislative part to Congress, let them figure out what they want to do and what can get votes, and then the president can go out and kind of sell that agenda. But right now, I think he's trying to focus, at least today, on these business meetings, because we also know that on the side, he's been tweeting about a variety of other things, right? So I think his team is trying to keep him focused on this.
Yesterday, it was Hillary Clinton getting the questions, getting the questions during that debate.
I'm not sure how that's productive.
Well,
meetings like this will be helpful.
It's not productive, and you could easily figure out why he did it, because the Financial Times asked him if he regretted his tweeting, and he said, well, has she ever apologized for that? So he's just trying to hold up a mirror to the rest of the political community.
I think we have to change our mindset about how this presidential first year is going to work. The idea is that there's going to be a first 100 days and all this legislation is going to get passed, because in the first 100 days, that's when the president has high popularity ratings. That's when he has all of his power. This president came into office without high popularity ratings. I think his numbers...
Well, and a lot of even Republicans with the knives out for him.
Right, and so his numbers are going to go up when he gets legislative victories. I think we have to move past the idea that he's going to get them quickly. I think he's got to work at getting them right, and that will push up his...
I want to bring in Lee here, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we've talked about this. When Donald Trump, the president, is doing a town hall with these leaders, these corporate leaders, this really sends a message, and it tries to continue to buoy the optimism that you have among the American people, among the business executives who are the ones actually doing the hiring, who are pushing up these surveys to near record levels, which we've seen with consumer confidence and manufacturing confidence. That's why it's so critical for him to be out there in public saying, I'm on the job. These people in Congress might be dropping the ball, but I at least do care about your livelihood.
I think it's a really good point, and I think if you look at what's most important to the American public, it is jobs, economic growth. So Donald Trump having these kinds of meetings is really important, not just from a policy perspective, but from an optics perspective, so that people continue to have this confidence that things it's having. But I also think it's really interesting. Some people are critical that Donald Trump isn't more involved in the policy, but this could be him being sly like a fox, saying, okay, let's let them try and do this, and the politics as usual, and I'm going to come in and save the day after you guys try everything that you're going to and get my own agenda.
I think at the end, meetings are just meetings. He's got to get stuff done.
Well,
that might help on a day-to-day basis, but he has to get he really has to get a tax overhaul done, and he's got a problem there because the House plan is going over like a lead balloon. The whole border adjustment idea, which is a centerpiece of their plan,
which is raises $1 trillion in revenue.
It's not catching on. So what's the alternative? He's got to be involved in that.
Before, Caitlin, I just want to get to this because I referenced it earlier. This GOP health care deal that we're talking about is still on the table, according to lawmakers. Last night, Vice President Pence met with Freedom Caucus members to discuss replacing Obamacare, and earlier administration officials discussed potential changes with moderate Republicans as well. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer and Senator Rand Paul did weigh in on this yesterday.
I think the president has made clear that he intends to work with anyone who wants to help him get to the number of votes. He obviously had a very productive discussion this weekend with Senator Paul. I know the Vice President's been actively engaged, as well as other members of the staff, with members of the House in particular. And they're going to continue to try to find a way forward.
We don't want to take responsibility for making the situation worse. So there still has to, a big sticking point is the insurance regulations, the Title I regulations, that we want to make sure that the death spiral of Obamacare is fixed.
Can here's a bigger picture question. Can you have parallel tracks for health care, tax reform, and infrastructure?
It's ambitious, but if you let the committees kind of do their work and figure out the actual policy part of it, and then make sure you have that ready to go for the president to sell it, I think that could happen. But I'm not sure how they make more, how they move on when they couldn't do it in the first place. If you're bringing in conservatives, you're pushing out moderates. I mean, it is a very large kind of, there are lots of divides here.
Which is what happened with
there's
the
also,
GOP.
There's also a technical issue, right? Because they were going to use reconciliation for 2017 for one bill and for 2018 for another. So how do you sequence these things?
Right, exactly. And then the Senate will still be a problem then after that. Right. I mean, you still need 60 votes to enact new policy. So I think it's a difficult road ahead. I've talked to lawmakers who say, look, let's just focus on a couple small types of bills related to infrastructure, related to tax, and claim some victories.
You cut the corporate tax rate, do small changes there on the business side, and then do a tax cut on the individual side.
You're not going to get Democrats for that, but you could get
would the Freedom Caucus members get on board with a tax bill that just cuts taxes and doesn't have the revenue offsets? Because some of them are pretty wishy-washy about it.
Well, you have a couple problems with that. One is that's not deficit neutral. So, you know, you've got the OMB director, Mick Mulvaney, is a budget hawk, and there are a lot of other budget hawks in Congress.
Former Freedom Caucus member.
And so will they go along with that? But then there's also just the process question. These bills have to be revenue neutral in a 10-year window in order to advance through reconciliation rules.
Can the American people and our optimism manage through this?
I think yes, except that why Donald Trump is president right now is because he promised to get things done. He promised to shake things up. So if some things don't get done, if this continues to see fractured Republican Party, the Freedom Caucus going one way, the establishment Republicans going another, Trump supporters another, Democrats a total another way, people are going to lose faith in government even more than they already have. So I agree with you. He's got to get some quick wins up there.